Wow, joining me to discuss this in detail, Nicola Arch, one of the very first victims of the Horizon scandal, and Nick Wallis, author of The Great Post Office Scandal. Thank you guys both for being here. Nick, can I start with you? Because the truth about your case is that this happened to you well before this became a national scandal, and yet that wasn't looked at. Tell us your story.
Yeah, I mean, when they initially started the rollout of the system, they offered that I would be one of the guinea pigs, if you like, of the new system, installed it, had problems right from the start, continually, rang the helpline. They said, well, you know, it is a trial, what are you expecting? You know, just bear with it. I did for 6 weeks. The discrepancies was just doubling up week on week.
So you knew instantly that this system was inadequate? And
I rang and told them so. And they said, well, you know, I was being too cynical. They probably brought across that we were sort of anti-computers because it was only 2,000 in computers.
Against modernisation.
Exactly, yeah. And yet I was only 24. So I loved everything to do with updating and things like that. So I welcomed it. I took on the shop, refitted the whole stuff at my own expense, new shelving, new decor, everything else. So to have the new computer system, that was the way I wanted to go. So I embraced it no end.
How long had you been a sub-postmaster before?
Nearly 10 years.
Had you?
Yeah.
So you got a good track record?
Yeah, and I did, you know, all the manual accounts for 10 years. So, you know, they were pretty spot on. And then I did bank work, and that's how I landed up having this post office. And never had problems before. So I rang, they said, well, you know, stop being so cynical, basically, give it chance, it will correct itself. Okay, fine. But the problem is you had to clear that data in order to start a new business the following day because you balanced every week.
Sure.
So on a Thursday, I had to declare basically that everything was okay because I wouldn't have been able to open the post office otherwise. The system wouldn't work.
But at that moment, when you had to declare to continue trading...
I just said I had more money than I did.
What, in the name of God, are these people thinking, that they're encouraging people to have to lie to cover up something that's not... What are you not feeling at that moment? Why would I be doing this? At
first, I thought... It's weird, but I thought, hang on a minute, this is a brand new system. Computers were relatively new at that time. And so I thought, well, I'm only going to get criticised for being cynical and anti-computer. So, and they made it clear that, you know, it wasn't an option. You had to have this system, whether you liked it or not.
And if you'd phoned them and said, Nick, you know, it doesn't balance.
I did, exactly that. And said straight away, and I could visually see what was causing the discrepancy as well. So I could say, well, actually, the computer isn't physically adding up correctly. I can see the problem.
So these people that you turned to for advice, you said, don't be anti-computers and anti-modernisation, they then turned on you?
Well, they basically, you know, I was becoming a bit of a nuisance, I think, because I was ringing every week for 6 weeks solid. And, oh, God, here she comes again, you know, moaning away. And I said, you know, we've got a discrepancy now of £32,000.
Wow.
I am beginning to get seriously worried. Surely there is somebody who can come down and help me or look at this so I can explain in person what I'm seeing here. Oh, well, it's just you. And then, of course, their investigators turned up the next day. I didn't know they were investigators. They introduced themselves as auditors. And I never went in the post office again after that. They accused me of stealing the money, took me off to the Crown Office, locked me in a room until 3:45 in the afternoon, questioned me all day on recorded it, and basically said, you're wasting all our time. Tell us where you've put the money. You're the only one who's had a problem with this.
Wow.
And it just went on. And I said, look, I've never, ever taken any money whatsoever. Oh, you're just wasting our time. Do you realise I'm ex-CID? I've met liars like you before.
So they sacked you?
Yep. I was suspended immediately then, and then that was in the October 2000, and then I was officially sacked in January, and I wasn't allowed to have the keys back to my business or the post office, which meant I had no access to any paperwork or any evidence, basically. And they said they would be questioning me again. But of course, I'd only just moved in with my boyfriend. We had a little 2 up, 2 down shared ownership property. I thought, how am I going to pay my bills? What do I do? And they drove me back to the business, and I drove home because I wasn't allowed to drive my own car to be questioned.
Wow.
And I wasn't allowed to have anybody with me.
No solicitor?
No, as soon as they started saying you've stolen the money, I said, look, I want somebody with me. I didn't realise, I'd been chatting, making coffee with them for the first 2 hours of the day. So I didn't have any inclination whatsoever.
If I can just hold you there 1 second. Nick, delighted to have you on. You've written this book and really you are the journalist that unearthed this. Is this the biggest miscarriage of justice in British legal history?
It's certainly one of the biggest, if not the biggest. In terms of the number of quashed convictions, which happened 2 years ago, it was the largest single number of quashed convictions in one day that the Court of Appeal has ever dealt with. And it's just a tiny fraction of the number of people who were prosecuted. Forgive me for slightly correcting you. I didn't break this story. You're going to have a guest on later from Computer Weekly, which was the magazine which actually did...
You wrote the book about it.
I did, but I have written the book.
There you are. There's the but how many cases like Nick's, and it's interesting because of course Nicola was before it became a national scandal. I mean that is an incredibly appalling. You were shaking your head, so was I.
It's corporate gangsterism.
It is.
That's what it was.
Yeah.
And Nikki was prosecuted. She was treated as a thief by her community, who all think there's no smoke without fire, when a very visible person...
Spat on me in the street.
Really?
Yeah.
And that's the human side, isn't
yeah,
it?
I come
Because
out of Tesco's and two women spat in my hair when I come out of Tesco's once, so I never left the house for nearly 18 months after that.
Now, you're smiling, but for what that caused you personally, this appalling miscarriage of justice, what did it do to you? What was your lowest moment?
Well, the man who is now my husband, who we moved in with, we were heavily prescribed antidepressants from the GP at the time because I just couldn't deal with it. And we basically planned our suicide because we lived 5 minutes away from Rodborough Common. And because we'd had all these prescriptions given to us, the solicitor basically said to me, we cannot get hold of any evidence at all. There's just nothing.
So let's just stop there a sec. So appalling was this for you? Spat on in the street, your livelihood removed, everything that you'd worked for 10 years.
Yeah.
You literally considered ending your life.
It wasn't a consideration, it was the plan. It was only the fact that my father at the time was going through kidney failure and I felt my mum needed my support at the time. It would be the wrong time to do it. But we were always going to do it.
What changed?
He didn't get better, he died. So Mum was then on her own and I said we obviously got married in the middle of this. I cancelled everything to do with the wedding. There was no way I was going to parade around being the new bride. I couldn't cope with that. So we've nothing from the wedding. We paid £27, went into town, got married and then went home. And that was it. No photography, no honeymoon, no dress, no nothing. Wow. Well, because I had nothing to celebrate and we always knew what our plan would be. And
did your now husband work for the post office as well?
No. He was a lorry driver and still is.
But loved you enough to
oh
be
yeah.
contemplating.
He stood by me. Yeah, he without him, I definitely would not have got through it.
How did you get justice in the end?
I haven't. It's as simple as that.
You got paid £9,000.
Yeah, from
right?
When they were.
Nick and I are just like, it's just.
Yeah, I mean, the only benefit you get from this, 23 years, it's my 23-year post office anniversary in November. My 18-year-old has always had his mother, who is the post office woman. And I want it to end now.
How does it end for you?
I want to be, if possible, compensated fairly, fully. What they're saying and what they're doing are two very, very different things.
If I can just bring you in, Nick, and loads more from you later, Nick. Thank you so much for your honesty. Seemingly many cases, seemingly many years, seemingly much head-scratching and head-banging. This is an appalling miscarriage. What are victims like Nicola supposed to think? Well, an institution that large, that's synonymous with Great Britain.
And trust. It was they wanted to buy into the brand of the post office because it came with it that sense of being part of the nation, part of the public service that you deliver to the nation, that trusted brand. And the way that Nikki in particular has been treated, her story makes me furious, frankly, because she's a strong woman. She's a strong woman. And she did not plead guilty as so many sub-postmasters did. So many sub-postmasters, trusting sub-postmasters who believed in the post office, who then believed in the criminal justice system to get them out of the hole that the post office had created, were suddenly faced with the prospect of going to prison, which is why, on advice from their own legal counsel, they ended up pleading guilty. Nikki held firm, and her life was still ruined.